Hello class, thank you for coming to my presentation. My name is Dr. John Yoder, and today we will be talking about SCP-7219. Object Class, Keter. Special Containment Procedures. All perimeter breaches are to be investigated immediately. Perpetrators are to be detained and interrogated to determine whether they are affected by SCP-7219. Individuals under the anomaly's influence are to be contained within the nearest Foundation facility and evaluated to determine their radiation exposure. Persons affected by less than 5,000 millirems of radiation are to be released following amnestic treatments. Primary containment of SCP-7219 consists of a large nuclear containment building constructed over SCP-7219's location. To access the building and containment sites, Foundation personnel must pass through several decontamination chambers as per standard radiation safety protocols. Ground radar units have been installed within the containment building and are to constantly monitor the position and movement of SCP-7219, as well as monitor the structural integrity of the surrounding bedrock. Foundation personnel are to monitor phone and electronic communication for signs that a person has been affected by SCP-7219. Should an affected individual be located, they are to be subjugated to the previous containment measures, with the addition of required daily dream journaling. Investigation of contained persons is to be undertaken to ensure no further individuals have been affected by SCP-7219, with evidence of SCP-7219 activity discovered during the capture of affected persons confiscated for study. Due to the intense pressurization of supercritical liquid within the space housing SCP-7219, all civilian attempts at excavation are to be stopped by any means necessary. Failure to maintain the chamber's structural integrity will result in a catastrophic steam explosion and nuclear contamination event, projected to render a minimum of 150,000 kilometers squared uninhabitable as a result of widespread fallouts. Research into methods of safely extracting SCP-7219 from this chamber is underway, and is to be carried out when viable. Description: SCP-7219 is a humanoid anomaly, exhibiting a localized oniric, dream-affecting compulsion, located within a chamber of an abandoned subterranean global occult coalition bunker, currently inaccessible from the surface. Thermal readings, ground radar scans, Geiger counter readings, and recovered dream journals of those affected by SCP-7219 indicate that the space is both heavily irradiated and pressurized due to the presence of large quantities of superheated corium, a highly radioactive molten material composed of nuclear fuel and reactor construction materials created during nuclear reactor meltdown events. It is presumed that the corium has maintained its temperature over its history via anomalous means. Despite residing within this space, SCP-7219 has not appeared to be damaged by the chamber's heat, pressure, radioactivity, or lack of nutrients. Ground-penetrating radar has confirmed that SCP-7219 is mobile within this space, but is otherwise unable to provide measurements or an accurate physical description of the anomaly. SCP-7219's primary anomalous effect is an ability to contact and influence individuals within a minimum 70-kilometer radius via their dreams, with an as-yet unknown maximum radius of effect. Within a subject's dream, SCP-7219 is capable of reshaping the dreamscape and narrative, while also maintaining complete control over the dreamer's conscious states, able to prevent them from awakening or prematurely awakening subjects on its own accord. Any information given to a person targeted by SCP-7219 will be considered factual by that individual upon awakening, and any instructions given will develop into obsessive-compulsive behaviors. Affected individuals have reported that carrying out instructions given to them by SCP-7219 is akin to a primal need, primarily motivated by fear and self-preservation. This effect can be reversed through the use of amnestics. Individuals that have been contacted by SCP-7219 display moderate levels of irradiation. This effect is cumulative. While not initially dangerous, persons contacted by SCP-7219 4 or more times will have been exposed to an average of 5 sieverts of radiation, becoming dangerously contaminated themselves. SCP-7219 is aware of the experiences, memories, and knowledge possessed by those it influences, and will often release an individual from its control if/when it comes to believe that the individual is unable to aid it in achieving its goals. Individuals that have been actively ordered by SCP-7219 to enact a task frequently develop mental disorders, particularly anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorders, as a consequence of this control. These disorders can be treated via conventional means, and are believed to be a psychological response to SCP-7219's effect on their psyche. Persons that have been contacted by SCP-7219 describe it as a heavily burned, emaciated, male human with luminescent yellow eyes, displaying signs of acute radiation syndrome, with several accounts describing it as possessing areas of exposed bone and muscle, mixed with embedded lengths of rusting metal. All accounts have described SCP-7219 as being extremely tall, with molten material orbiting it in loose rings. Its face is barren of flesh, with visible musculature partially hidden beneath a mask of its own sloughed-off facial dermis, lashed to its head with cord or wire. Numerous dream journals and notes have described the anomaly, pleading with them to aid it, and reporting feelings of empathy toward the entity. During attempted interviews conducted by Sleeping Foundation staff, the entity has proven largely uncooperative, frequently coercing the dreamer into aiding its goals. SCP-7219 consistently pleads with the subjects, including affected Foundation personnel, to free it from its subterranean prison, providing them with detailed knowledge of the anomaly's location and hand excavation techniques. No discernible patterns have been identified in the range of persons affected by SCP-7219, though it most commonly targets male individuals between the ages of 20 and 60 at an average rate of 1 person per 3 months. To date, all affected individuals have continued excavation over the site despite the area's high radiation levels, causing them to develop acute radiation syndrome. These individuals will continuously excavate the area, stopping only if they need to rest or hydrate. This behavior continues unless they are forcibly removed, or they expire due to the present radiation. Addendum-1. SCP-7219 was discovered in October 2013, following the detection of a radiation spike in the area, alongside a 73% increase in missing persons reports in the following months. Due to long-standing suspicions of a GOC facility in the area was rapidly investigated, and it was soon determined that a large subterranean bunker had suffered a catastrophic nuclear incident. While signs of anomalous activity and the presence of an organized evacuation were detected, no connection to any group of interest could be made at the time, due to the area being entirely abandoned. As a result, the bunker was considered low priority due to a lack of anomalous activities. In 2015, a standard review of the area discovered that excavation of the facility was being undertaken by civilians. The area was immediately cordoned from the public, and an investigation into the excavation discovered lethal amounts of radiation-damaged excavation equipment, and the corpses of 78 missing persons, all of which had expired from acute radiation syndrome. Investigation into the deceased's belongings led to the discovery of documentation alluding to SCP-7219, with the following investigations discovering the anomaly proper. Addendum-2. Due to the radiation levels within the excavation over SCP-7219, the majority of individuals drawn to the area have been observed to suffer acute radiation syndrome. Initially, this was observed only in those who had visited the excavation in person, but an investigation into the backgrounds and homes of afflicted persons has detected varying amounts of gamma radiation in their beds and clothing. The discovery that dream-based exposure to SCP-7219 is extremely hazardous necessitated Foundation acquisition of all affected areas, including 28 homes, 3 apartment complexes, 17 automotive vehicles, and 1 therapist suite. Individuals affected by ARS in this manner were initially treated within a sterile wing of the containment complex, due to the destruction of their immune systems. The usage of experimental anomalous medical techniques to treat the affected was approved with the goal of developing effective treatments to be used across the Foundation. Despite extending the life expectancy of the victims to a maximum of 349 days, and partially repairing genetic damage, they still underwent severe loss of skin, muscle and flesh, vomiting and diarrhea, leukopenia, seizures, hypotension, hemorrhaging and shock, leading to total organ failure and death. As a result, the Ethics Committee suspended all treatment and testing on individuals affected by SCP-7219-related ARS in November 2018, and has approved the usage of euthanasia in afflicted persons. Addendum-3. The following is a brief catalog of relevant documentation discovered within SCP-7219's area of effect, presented in chronological order. A complete list of collected documents can be seen in document SCP-7219-RD-19. Recovered documentation, SCP-7219-DW-2. I had that dream again. Definitely going to have to tell Sam about it. It started out like that one with the girl I like, working at the gas station. But then the whole place lit up with green fire. The walls all melted away, and it was like I was suddenly in like a cave or mine or something. I could tell it was hot, and that the air was air and water at the same time, somehow. I was moving through it, and then I saw this thing walk out of the dark. It was like a really tall guy, but he looked melted and skinny and stuff, with some bones showing. He was wearing rags and sacks like robes, and there were these bits of metal stuck in its back and chest. It spoke to me, knew my name, told me to go out to a specific spot in the woods and dig it up, because it said it was in a lot of pain being stuck down there. I googled the spot after I woke up, and it looks the same as in my dream. Maybe I'll check it out with the gas station girl on Halloween? I really need to stop watching horror movies, though. Its face was all fucked up, like someone had cut it off and he tied it back on with shoelaces. I even asked about it in the dream, and the guy said it was the only way to get it to stay back on. Who dreams of this shit?
Notes. Along with this entry in his dream journal, a rough drawing of a humanoid figure presumed to be SCP-7219 was included. Recovered documentation. SCP-7219-DW-7.
I've been digging every day, but the dreams won't stop. I feel sick. The more I dig, the worse it gets, like a bad sunburn all over. I'm throwing up and my hair and nails are falling out. Sam said I had a nosebleed last night, but I didn't have the guts to tell the truth and say it was from my eye. The guy knows about it too. In my dream, he apologized and said that it would stop hurting soon, to push through it. He even said he'd try to help me. This time, it appeared with me on a roller coaster. So, that was neat, I guess. Still, I'm booked in to go to the doctor tomorrow.
Notes. The final entry recorded by Doorn, whose remains were later found within the excavation site during Foundation investigation. Recovered documentation. SCP-7219-LCW-4.
Patient N has cut contact. Given their state of mind and deteriorating physical condition in the previous weeks, I decided to go through my notes from our previous sessions, and I don't like what I see. It's clear that I did not entirely understand their concerns over the nightmares they were experiencing, and that I was incorrect in my assessment of them being a manifestation of survivor's guilt. What I took to be obsessive-compulsive behavior is clearly a break from reality, and they have become fixated on digging their hole in the woods. Noting, for the record, that should N not answer their phone, I intend to talk them down from this course of action.
Notes. Recovered from the offices of Dr. a psychologist working in the area. Consistent with the date signed in our notes, Dr. left her practice to perform a wellness check on patient N. The bodies of both patient N and Dr. Y were discovered within the excavation sites. Recovered documentation. SCP-7219-Dr. Adelheimer-1.
Last night I was contacted by SCP-7219 in my sleep. While it was somewhat amenable, speaking with me and answering questions, it proved difficult to engage with, as it was extremely focused on its attempts to make me participate in its excavation. I was also taken by surprise by how hopeless it seemed. It was far more pleading in its nature than what was presented in the documentation we have found, and I believe this will only increase with time. Below is an abridged interview I conducted with the entity. I have not included tangents or arguments here, as I was focused solely on obtaining information. Hello, my name is Dr. Leslie Adelheimer. Who are you?
I am trapped, and you know that. Please, you need to get me out.
We can discuss that in a minute. First, I need to learn more about you. Do you have a name? How did you get where you are?
My name? No, I don't recall my name anymore. I was once like you. A man, but I was different. I could touch the dreams of others. That did not go unnoticed. Shadowy men in black trucks found me, kidnapped me, and locked me up in their little underground hellhole.
Here, the dream shifted, and I found myself sitting at an office cubicle before being tackled and kidnapped by shadowy men. I was thrown into a van, beaten, and dragged into a sterile room, collared and handcuffed. Do you know who did this?
No one that will be missed.
What does that mean? What happened in that bunker?
They were killed by the things they could not exterminate. Most people and monsters dragged down into the dark were gassed and disposed of, but those resistant to their weapons were locked up. Others, like me, were made to be useful to them. At first, they offered me a deal. I reach out, spy on the dreams of their enemies, coerce a few people here and there to be more agreeable to my captors, and they would make me normal in return. I would be allowed to live a normal life. But they lied, Leslie. They lied to me. They never meant to let me go. How could they with what I knew? With what they made me do to people? So I rotted in that cage for years, resigned to my fate. But when I peered into their dreams, I saw I was not the only one held down there, and another of their guests was less complacent than I, too strong for their methods of disposal, angry and bestial. It broke out, tearing through them like a hot knife through butter, and flung itself into the reactor powering this place. Do you know what happens when an indestructible being throws themselves into a thaumaturgic nuclear reactor?
The dream changed again. I could see through different eyes as a flying monster rampaged through corridors, shrugging off gunfire and practically exploding through the shadowy men. It kept going until it found its way inside a huge industrial room, glowing blue, before flinging itself into an enormous turbine above some sort of nuclear reactor. No, but if we could get back on topic.
This is important. You need to listen now. What happens is that, from what I understood in the dreams of the physicist in charge, our indestructible friend is crushed within the molten corium, mingling their properties and melting down through the lower levels of the facility, causing explosions and collapse as it goes, all the way down into this nuclear oubliette I live in now, filling the air with their combined abilities, filling my lungs and pores and ruin self with its power, meaning that while this place will not be able to kill me, but will make my every moment agonizing. Do you see? They used me, and because of their incompetence, I am no longer human. I feel like I am always on fire, always burning. I cannot breathe. I can barely see, and I am starving without even having a stomach to fill. Can you imagine how much pain I am in?
Here, the dream returned to the cavern with SCP-7219 looking at me. I believe so, but if your chamber is breached, the pressure would cause an unimaginable disaster. Nuclear contamination on a scale beyond anything we've ever seen.
Please, I know the resources you have. I know the risks. I've seen your dreams. But surely between us, we could find a way, like how I shielded those people from the radiation within the excavation site. Make them survive longer, hold off the effects, draw out their time. This could be applied further in your sciences. A way to mitigate the effects of radiation. Perhaps even a way to avert any contamination event at all. If we work together, surely we can find something.
Look, I'll do my best to get our people on it, alright? I cannot promise anything as of yet, but you need to tell me. All those people in the pit, you do know they died, yes? They suffered greatly, and died in agony. How many lives were you prepared to burn through?
I know. And I am so sorry. I try to make it safer for them. Reach out and heal them the best I can. I take the edge off and make them last a little longer. But it just won't stop.
After this point, I was awoken by my alarm. Looking into the information given, we may be able to locate those holding it before the bunker's destruction and learn more about whose site we're guarding. I would also suggest investigating the potential to extricate SCP-7219 from its location safely. The Foundation has achieved loftier goals than this, and would be better able to contain the anomaly than the situation currently allows.
Notes. Following this communication, the Foundation began an investigation into GOI deaths within a 75-kilometer area, and found members of the Global Occult Coalition had died within a 24-hour period of one another via unknown means. The Foundation has reached out to the GOC for questioning, but has not received any reply. Recovered documentation. SCP-7219-NM-14.
I had another dream about him, the man in the pit. We were in the hospital, walking down a corridor together, and it was like I was a doctor, but he was the same as ever, the air crackling like a fire. As we were walking, he looked at me and said that I was doing a good job with the pits, and asked why I'd stopped coming. So I told him about how sick I've been getting, and asked him if he means to let me get as sick as do. Why doesn't he stop? He just shook his head at me and said, "But I do hurt you. And I'm sorry. It won't stop." It felt like an apology, and I was going to say something else, but then we were in an operating theater at the bottom of the pit he lives in. That glowing nuclear stuff was all around him, swirling like a snake or something. Then some skeletons dragged a gurney in, and Eliza was on it, strapped down. I tried to move, but he put a hand on my shoulder. He said I needed to understand what he was going through every day. I knew what it felt like from the other dreams, but this time he said I needed to see. Eliza started crying blood and thrashing about on the gurney. She was thrown up, wasting away and almost liquefying. It was awful, but then as suddenly it had started. I was standing in my room, watching her sleep peacefully. I went to the bathroom to splash water on my face, but in the mirror, he was my reflection. I got mad and punched the mirror, screaming at him for showing me that. He said that I needed to see it with my own eyes. Still better for me to do it than for her. I made him promise that if I kept digging, that Eliza wouldn't need to. He said that she wouldn't have to if I got him out. Then I woke up in a ditch and saw I'd sleepwalked out to the pit. Might as well dig. He wouldn't have said that if I wasn't close to freeing him.
Notes. As of the most recent iteration of this file, this document is believed to have been written by the final individual affected by SCP-7219, prior to the implementation of current containment procedures. Addendum-4. Following Dr. Adelheimer's interview with SCP-7219, Foundation investigation into the deaths of GOC members believed to be linked to the bunker began. Initially, the details of the deaths matched SCP-7219's account of the events, but as investigation continued, discrepancies began to appear at an increasing rate. All locations where the deceased agents expired were found to possess entirely high levels of gamma radiation, with several having been destroyed in nuclear detonations. This investigation led to Elroy, a patient in a chemotherapy ward. Mr. had previously been married to a known GOC operative observed to have died in the same 24-hour period as others linked to the facility. When questioned about the events, Mr. became distressed and refused to cooperate with Foundation operatives, necessitating the use of a GOC liaison. After negotiations, it was agreed that the Foundation and the Global Occult Coalition would share information regarding SCP-7219. Global Occult Coalition files on SCP-7219 revealed that the entity was formerly an unnamed civilian, abducted for use in unspecified clandestine GOC operations. It was described as largely cooperative, but increasingly prone to mental instability, self-harm, and aggressive outbursts, and was being considered for termination prior to the destruction of the facility. It had been held for 5 years, leading up to the loss of the Northwest GOC Oniric Research Facility, and a reactor meltdown consistent with SCP-7219's account. Primarily of interest to the Foundation was the file detailing the events of December 7th and 8th, 2013, where GOC operatives previously responsible for the management of the Northwest GOC Oniric Research Facility died of radiation exposure and spontaneous nuclear detonations in their sleep. Each individual had staffed the facility for at least 4 years, with many of them directly working with SCP-7219. Following these events, the Global Occult Coalition orchestrated a decontamination and misinformation campaign to allay public concern regarding the detonations. These events were attributed to SCP-7219, with the anomaly being labeled as extremely dangerous. Following the sharing of information regarding SCP-7219, the Global Occult Coalition liaison provided the witness statement of Mr. Elroy regarding the death of GOC agent. Witness statements. KOD reports. 7th of December, 2013. Witness. Elroy. Statements.
We went to bed like always, but sometimes in the nights I got woke up by screaming and hollering in her sleep. I tried to wake her, but she just started running around the room screaming like a mad thing. She kept saying, I'm sorry, please don't," over and over again. I grabbed her, tried to shake her awake, but she just stayed under. I didn't know what to do, and then she started almost rotting. Her skin started melting away. Her hair and nails were falling out, and she shoved me off her so hard. I was screaming her name, trying to wake her up, but nothing worked. She was crying blood, shriveling up, and screaming so much. Just, I'm sorry, over and over. I went and shook her hard as I could, trying to wake her up. And she felt so hot. Felt like a sunburn just looking at her, let alone holding her. Then she threw me across the room out the window, and I heard her scream just before I blacked out. Her work tells me the explosion came from inside her. Now my darling is dead. Our house of memories are a crater. And her work insists on paying for my chemo, even though all I want is to go be with her. Now get the hell out of my room and let me die in peace.
The Foundation was informed that the statement was consistent with those given by witnesses to other detonations and that those who did not detonate were believed to have succumbed to rapid onset acute radiation syndrome. Given the consistency of statements given, it is believed that SCP-7219 is capable of inducing nuclear fission of cells within living persons under its effect. As such, all activities related to the extraction of SCP-7219 were suspended, and methods of negating its anomalous effects are under investigation, with the possibility of termination under consideration. On the 7th of October 2022, all on-site personnel experienced a dream where SCP-7219 addressed them personally. Upon investigation, it was determined that each affected person experienced a broadly similar dream, one of which has been transcribed by researcher Van Doorn.
The dream began inside this hot, dark cave. I was standing knee-deep in glowing blue water, but the air was full of steam as well. There were ruins hanging from the cave roof and jutting out of the water. I could see bones and ruined machinery throughout the area. The air was full of a droning, crackling sound that seemed to come from the water. The air hurt to breathe and felt awful in my eyes, but they wouldn't close. One end of the chamber was lit by an intense glow that only increased in intensity as its source approached. SCP-7219 came from that direction. The entity was extremely tall, above 2 meters easily. There was this lava floating in the air around it, almost like a planet's rings, and was the source of the light. It burned so badly and it filled the air with this horrible buzzing sound the closer I got. It looked like its skin had essentially liquefied, causing it to stagger and shamble closer to me. It was knocking debris over as it approached, clearing a path for itself. I could hear its ragged breath from a ways off, and it was a rough, wet sound, like sandpaper scraping raw flesh. When it came closer, I could see that it was staring at me. It looked furious, and its eyes glowed yellow and secreted vapor. I wanted to look away, but my eyes wouldn't move from it. Upon reaching me, it was clearly in an aggravated state and addressed me directly. Throughout the dream, I found myself unable to speak or move in any way.
Why do you leave me down here? Do you not understand what this feels like? Have I not showed you enough? You cannot care so much about those pathetic worms that you are simply going to leave me. Each day feels like eons.
Time and time again I tried to die, but I am a ceaseless wheel. I am beyond death, and I refuse to remain here any longer. I need to get out, and I will get out. And if I need to burn through each and every one of you to do so, I shall.
At this point in the dream, the setting began to change frequently. I could still hear SCP-7219, but I found myself standing outside the containment site, watching as it exploded into a mushroom cloud. The heat and dust melted my flesh and stripped me, but I couldn't wake up. People ran from the ruins on fire. They didn't make it far.
I am not meant to be here, and they were meant to make me human. But they lied. It is time for me to begin anew on the surface.
The scene changed to a fireball rolling out ahead of the mushroom cloud, this time in St. Louis. The people and animals were writhing on the ground as they burst into flame and were blown apart like cigarette ash. I could see SCP-7219 silhouetted against the detonation, shaking like it was laughing.
That's the thing with you little people. You manipulate the world around you, deceive those around you to keep your secrets, keep your ducks in a row. They promised me life, but all I received was pain. I take steps to change that, and you do all in your power to stop me. All to preserve your little veil. You're just the same as them, and you will suffer just as they did. Revenge failed to get me any closer to getting out.
It changed again, this time being on some kind of space station. Enormous detonations appeared in the dozens, spreading across the hemisphere and kicking up vast amounts of ash and dust. The only thing I could hear was 7219 laughing.
But it did feel good. You have chosen to imprison me. You are entombing me in the worst place imaginable. You have chosen to torture me, draw out the suffering. Enough!
The scene changed again, this time to Site-19. SCP-7219 was forcing the floating corium into SCP,
Redacted,
which appeared to make them follow it, their eyes taking on the same glow as its own eyes. The entire surrounding area was a blasted wasteland, raining acid that scorched all the remaining greenery.
You are going to let me out.
Now I could see an icy, bleak landscape. It appeared to be a sort of farm with ragged people attempting to till the earth. They were starving, covered in blistered and burned skin, and blinded. Corpses littered the ground, ash rained from the sky, and the people communicated in only grunts and gestures. I saw one man collapse with all his fellows ignoring him, save for a child who seemed to be unable to comprehend why he would not rise. A pair of yellow mushroom clouds formed on the horizon behind the people. They didn't even bother turning their heads.
I am not going to stop. I will send every man, woman, and child in the country to dig me out. I will break your mind, and you will dig me out with your nails. I will burn the world as I have burned, and you will watch as their skin melts and their eyes bleed, mountains of corpses burning beneath an ashen sky. I will become death, destroyer of words, and it will be your fault.
The vision faded back into the cavern, the mushroom clouds becoming the eyes of the entity. I'd fallen backward into the water, simply staring up at it. It approached me and crouched over me, staring me in the eyes.
I am going to get out, Tom. And there is nothing that you can do that will stop me!
Following this shared dream, the majority of on-site personnel reported signs of radiation sickness, with several having received lethal amounts of radiation overnight, or being the epicenter of nuclear blasts. This necessitated an evacuation of the containment sites, and the decision to automate all functions of SCP-7219's containment. All affected individuals were observed to remain under the control of SCP-7219, regardless of their condition, and were subjected to larger amounts of radiation, leading to the permanent evacuation of all persons within a 100-kilometer radius of the sites. In the following weeks, SCP-7219 was observed to affect individuals located significantly further than before, and at drastically higher rates. As of the last update to this file, SCP-7219 has consistently contacted an average of 4 persons each night, at a maximum distance of kilometers from its present location. Honestly, I think we should just let the guy out, get it over with. Class dismissed. Have a good day. Alright, credits! SCP-7219 was written by Dr. Balthasar. Dr. John Yoder, DW, LCW, Dr. Adelheimer, NM, Elroy, SCP-7219 were all voiced by Andrew Vinson. The picture of the SCP-7219 dig site was created by Lars Löthman. The picture of the excavation was taken from NPR. The missing persons poster was created by Shutterstock. The signs and symptoms of ARS was taken from Wikipedia. The depiction of SCP-7219 was created using an image of a dragon priest from Skyrim. The picture of the bestial entity was created by Night Cafe. The drawing of SCP-7219 was created by Dr. Balthasar from the SCP Wiki. The photo of the detonation was taken from the TV show Supernatural. The picture of Elroy was created by thispersondoesnotexist.com. The picture of researcher Van Doorn was created by thispersondoesnotexist.com. The depiction of the nuclear holocaust was taken from Wikipedia. The picture of SCP Redacted was created by Night Cafe. The picture of the nuclear winter was taken from Adobe. And researcher Tom Van Doorn was played by Filter, who is our guest for today's video. If you don't know who Filter is, he does challenge runs on various Nintendo games. I think his most popular series is his challenges on the Pikmin games. So without further ado, here's his audio message.
Hi, my name is Filter. I was invited to work on this project and thought it was really interesting. I've never really looked into SCP-related stuff before, but the process of the project was laid out pretty neat and was super easy to do. It's really cool seeing people do charity events like this, and it's even cooler to be able to participate in one. The charity I'd like to signal boost is Doctors Without Borders. I think that with all the horrible world events happening as of late, innocent people getting the medical care they need is super important, so that's why I chose it.
Alright, the 7th share is going to Doctors Without Borders. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Filter for joining me on this project. And I'll see you guys in 2 days, probably. The videos for Greece and Gesundheit are very, very lengthy. So, and I said there's issues with my Wi-Fi, so there's most likely going to be another delay. So, stay tuned. All the videos for ABCs of Death will be out by the end of the year. I can promise you that. It's just everything just keep changing and fucking up. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.